Hello, everyone. My name is Christopher Thong. I'm the co-founder of this company called Key. Key is trying to bring communities together to help working professionals um, figure out how to have the best professional lives, whether it's as a founder, finding new opportunities, investing in startups, helping others. And it was so nice to be able to expand from what I started with the ex-Google community called Zoogla. It grew to over 33,000 members. And over the years, a lot of folks have said, can you help me with that community or this community for all the other tech companies? And I got such a great friend and partner now in Anand, who was raised his hand, said, let's start doing this for the Facebook and Meta communities. So we're going to do a series of talk sessions, and maybe in a few years' time, the ex-Meta community will get over 10,000 members too, and we'll all be able to be more helpful to each other. That's the goal of Key. How can we really use the latest tech tools and platforms to be able to help everyone with their professional lives? Anand, thank you for taking the time to share more about your journey post-Meta, and looking forward to having this casual fireside chat with you.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Absolutely thrilled to be here talking to you. I know we've spoken so much offline as well, but excited to share some of my journey and where my path has taken me, and see if that's really helps somebody else.
Great. Maybe we can start with sharing your journey between what you studied in university to now, and just be a bit elaborate more so everyone knows about your
Yeah,
journey in a more detailed way.
yeah, absolutely. So I started off as somebody like even really young, wanting to be around technology, wanted to be in the computer world, the tech world. So I did my bachelor's in engineering. Started my first job as a software engineer. Then decided that like I didn't want to code as much as I wanted to be in and around the new tech that was coming up. So when I did my master's in information systems management, and soon after that, I realized that Google came calling, and as surprised as I was, I joined the company. Spent about 4 years there. Um, Worked on anti-spam, worked on Google search, the company's flagship product, and that eventually took me to Facebook in Singapore, Facebook back then, Meta today, where I was part of the developer ecosystem, still working around regulation, compliance, and all of that. Um, Before um, my time at Meta kind of came to a screeching halt as I was one of the 11,000 people who got laid off. But yeah, right after that, um, had the opportunity and the world kind of open out to me in ways that I never could have imagined. And 2 years since that fateful day, or what now I call as an eye-opening day, I'm here as a founder, working on some exciting stuff, if not for the world, at least for myself.
Great. Thank you. And have you always wanted to be a founder, or do you think you fell into this opportunity?
Actually, almost every founder that I have met have always wanted to be a founder. That wasn't the case for me. There was actually an opportunity that came along. My co-founder, he and I just started talking, and I don't know what magic his words had, but he kind of very nicely kidnapped me into the world of entrepreneurship. Um, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, if you'd asked me if I ever wanted to be a founder, I'd be like, "Are you crazy? Who'd ever want to do that?" But now, I actually think everybody should have their foray into this space, learn things about themselves that they would never know, and because that I believe has been the truth for me, is that it's opened up opportunities, and I think got me into uncomfortable spaces that I never thought I would get into. So yeah, I mean, I'm sure we'll talk more about that, but that's how it's come to being.
And I think a lot of people who are looking for jobs these days or trying to explore what to do next, even they are in jobs, they've always hear about the founder journey. And some people, as you mentioned, have always wanted to be a founder. And here you are being a founder, never thinking of being or wanting to be a founder. Can you share some of the more surprising things, and for people who are maybe even interested in being a founder, what they should be aware of beforehand?
Yeah. A lot of the time while I was still in companies like Google and Meta, it felt like every day we were aging a month or two. It felt like a high-speed train, right? What I did realize was that towards the end of my journey at Meta, I started feeling things to be super comfortable. I mean, my autonomy on things started really diminishing, right? And now in the founder space, I feel like I'm traveling at 1,000,000 miles per hour, and that I feel is like the difference. You have a lot more autonomy to do things that you want. You are building stuff from scratch. You're making decisions that fully are yours. You take complete ownership. Um, and for people who kind of are feeling like they're boxed in their current corporate roles, or they felt that way before, I would say that entrepreneurship or foundership would actually bring a new lease of fresh air to them. Um, it's unique if you haven't faced it yet, and unique in the fact that you've got to wear 300 hats in a span of 10 minutes, right? And so you've got to be kind of anticipating that kind of a change in mindset every few minutes. And it also gives you the opportunity to focus very, very deeply on one thing. And I think it feels like um, a trade-off between one versus the other all the time. And you've got to make those trade-offs very, very quickly.
So you mentioned the positives. Please share some less positives or learning opportunities of being a founder. What is a worst day like as a founder? As people
Oh, I think the worst days sometimes feel like you're powerless as well, because you're going to have to wear all of these hats at the same time. Um, you're feeling like I have no idea what that role entails. Like one day you've got to be a finance manager trying to figure out why your books are not as tidy as they need to be, and the other day you're kind of looking at, is this legally allowed for me to do? And yet another day you're back to your primary strength or your skill, and you're figuring out, is this how it used to be done? So like that cloud of um, uncertainty always hangs around you. And especially early days, like I am in my journey, you're trying to find product market fit, or you're trying to find the right messaging to share with people. You're constantly wondering if that's the right way to do it, right? Because you're exposing yourself to skills that you never knew you needed. And so that's the scary bit for things that are completely out of your control. And I am scared every day, but still trying to find a way to make it work.
But let's talk a bit more about what you did before you got to this journey, and perhaps the skills you learned in each job. Looking at your background, you started in trust and safety at Google, then you went over to Facebook and developer platforms. Can you share more about what you learned in those type of roles that really prepared you for what you do day to day here?
Yeah. So yeah, at Google, as part of the uh, search anti-abuse team, um, where I think we were constantly on the hustle to build the best anti-spam systems. Um, when I transitioned over to Meta, I was working on a lot more on the regulatory compliance space, um, prime and center for the Cambridge Analytica related issue that popped up in 2017, 2018. So the underlying thread that basically I was realizing was that I could work things at a really tight, chaotic space. And that's kind of been like my hallmark coming into the founder's journey because it's chaos all around me all the time. My experiences from Google and Meta have really kept me um, like on my toes a lot more than sometimes I give credit for myself, right? The thread that has been invisible to me for a long time has been that it's always been about people as well, right? How do I make impact at scale? um, who am I really kind of uplifting through the work that I do has been something that I constantly think about. Whether it's true or not, or whether they came true or not, is a different matter. But I think that that's what's been underlying as well for me.
Thank you. And then now looking at your background as well, you also did a professional development coach certification and a program. Can you share more about what got you into it and what you learned from it in case folks are thinking of becoming a coach as well?
Yeah, I think that was a interesting phase right after Meta. I kind of found myself. Um, I actually got into a startup. I was a third person in that startup. Um, it never really got off the ground, but I spent about 4 or 5 months in that startup, um, and while I was doing some interesting looking work, I was doing a lot of it on my own. I never had the chance to kind of really work with people. Like I said, people is that um, was that invisible thread that was still following me around, right? And I didn't get too much time to uh, do a lot of that. Really work with people, try to find impact through them, not just with them. And that's when coaching gave me this opportunity to impact people and their journeys. There's something fundamentally fulfilling to me about witnessing other people grow, and like yeah, just working with them wasn't good enough for me, and that's how coaching uh, got me that opportunity. Like I've always kind of found a way to rely on experts and what they really taught me. They've taught me kind of um, is that you just have to listen to learn. You have to um, ask to understand deeper, and that kind of brought that humility and patience in the way that I have gone about my various roles. So this is something that I also wanted to share with people as often as I could, and coaching gave me that opportunity to do that.
Great. And can you share what kind of clients you're coaching these days or want to coach in case anyone who watches this is looking for a coach?
Yeah, I mean, my primary like interest in here is, like I said, really to work with people and see them grow. I work with people who want to kind of um, lead their growth as professionals. And so if that's something that you're interested, I'd love to have a chat and kind of help you in that journey.
And does it need to be in tech, non-tech, folks in certain categories, or
Yeah, because I come from the tech kind of background, that's usually the people that I speak to these days. But I've spoken to somebody who has been industrialist, was born in that kind of a journey. Somebody who has been in the arts and filmmaking space as well. So I think the journey that you are after, um, as long as it's forward looking, and you want to kind of make a change in yourself, I'd love to kind of have a chat.
Great.
Yeah, I see like Vincent has a question probably.
Yes, go for it.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks so much for sharing, Anand. Yeah, I do have like conversation. I think this is something that I've been struggling, but one thing that I've been struggling so far is like self doubts, right? Um, I know, like for example, like honestly, the past 2 months is not it's not easy, and it was like I kept thinking like what should I have done differently last year or something like that to avoid getting laid off. And I always keep thinking about like like my friends, my colleagues, they are still like working at Meta right now, and then they still, and then like suddenly we don't have like much contact anymore. And it's a lot of like self doubts. And I think like even if I go through the 2 months of like like trying to find out what I want to do, trying to learn as many stuff as possible, also applying for jobs while at it. Recession is also incoming whatsoever. All those kind of news, I think it's kind of overwhelming. So I was kind of wondering what's your um like 2 months or 3 months after your let off journey look like how do you like cope up with it until now that you have slowly built your confidence as a startup founder?
Yeah, thanks for that question, Vincent. I think that's a um, very deep question, and I'll find a way to answer it in how I have experienced it. Right? I think it's been one of my hardest transitions in a way. Um, like first of all, there's a financial aspect. There's a aspect around how comfortable do you get in your everyday skin right now, and these are some of the things that I've had to constantly consider, juggle. um, like there was so many hard things to kind of walk away right after Meta. I think the comfort, the benefits, and sometimes, like you said, the structure, the resources that you have at hand, all of them get stripped away in an instant, practically, right? For me, my my truth has always been to ground myself. Um, um, to ground myself, I rely on people. I rely on um, like before I make any big decisions, I want to be clear-headed. I want to be centered and grounded, like I said. Right. To me, sometimes I get this by creating space for myself for the reflection of what I want to do, who I want to be, and so on. I typically turn back to some kind of sport or exercise. This really helps me to clear that mind out for me, right? Then what I did was like in my own journey, I actually found out what were my interests, like what were my strengths. I shared like one of the strengths for me was that I figured that I could perform well in chaos, right? So what did that mean to me? How can I utilize that feeling um, to feel myself being relevant again? Because we're always made to believe that the work that we do is like super important and everything. I wanted to find that truth for myself um, going through that journey, right? Um, and eventually, I I stumbled on something, figured out that didn't work, stumbled on something else, figured out that didn't work, and so I went through this that phase of assess and pressure test, figuring out like what are the potential directions that I could take, have trusted advisors, friends, family around me to um, keep me motivated in going through that journey, right? And eventually, like I figured out that, oh, some of these assumptions that I had made, some of the challenges that I given for myself were either too steep, too difficult, and using this process, I could then figure out how is it that I wanted to lead myself forward. And so, yeah, that's been how I've thought about it. That's what I've been reflecting on for the last maybe year, and continue in that process. Now I've figured out that being in the entrepreneur's journey, there are a lot of these strengths that I could continue to surface. Um, I have people around me. I found ways to kind of work with people as well. And that's kind of gotten me into um, spaces of strong feeling as well. So yeah, that's how I've gone about that journey. I think the fundamental thing that I want you to probably think about is um, what is it that you truly want, like beyond the environment around you, and that would really help you to bring that calmness to yourself, and over time you would be able to figure out if you want to work um, on certain spaces with or without the environment affecting you. I hope that kind of starts to answer your question.
Got it. Thank you. Yeah, maybe just one more is that how long does it take for you to figure it out? Because like I
Oh,
always thought that I will figure out later on, but then I don't feel like I take a good enough step to be more confident about myself. So yeah, it's like yeah, I'm not sure whether I'm doing things properly or not. Yeah.
yeah. Again, how long? The very first startup that I said I'd kind of gotten into, um, I thought I'd figured it out, right? On my first attempt, I'm like, yes, this is a good challenge. Like it's somebody else's problem to figure out, like how do we kind of do bring in the money and blah blah blah. Um, then I realized, oh, actually, that wasn't it. So I went on to try something else. I went on to get certified as a coach. So I don't think there's a specific timeline that I would say this would work for you. I think as a coach, I would encourage you to like give yourself these timelines and see like what it means to kind of achieve them. How would you feel if you didn't achieve them, and how would you kind of um, create that trampoline under you to bounce back quicker when it doesn't work out, right? Because when it works out, like you're feeling well and fine, but if it doesn't, what underlying belief does it hurt you in, and you kind of have to explore those elements to really understand like what does bouncing back mean for you, and what are the true goals that you want to achieve, and that'll give you some clarity. um, I personally wouldn't think about this from a timeline perspective, and having gone through um, the path that I have taken, I wouldn't want somebody else to think about it from a timeline as well. I think you want to give yourself milestones rather than deadlines, and that would make it easier for you to know how to do micro pivots and a mega pivot if needed.
Got it. Thank you so much for the advice. It's really
Yeah.
helpful.
Can you explain what are micro pivots and macro pivots, Anand?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I can try. When I talk about micro pivots, it's slowly um, readjusting your direction in very small ways. So if you wanted to kind of do 10 push-ups a day, you might say, okay, I just want to do 3 push-ups today, right? And I want to get stronger that way. So that would be something like a readjusting of your existing milestone, but at a smaller cadence if you prefer. But if you suddenly wanted to do a marathon, you can't do push-ups. Like you'll have to start running, you'll have to time yourself and whatnot. And so that would be like a macro pivot for you, right? And so when you're looking for your next opportunity, a micro pivot is only applying for jobs in your skill, your area of your industry. So if you were at Meta, then Google and like Microsoft and Apple and stuff like that, applying there would be some of these um, like similar spaces. A macro pivot would be starting a business on your own, right? Getting into, let's say, an NGO as such. So that's how I would kind of find a way to compare micro and macro at this point.
Great. And just flowing from that, clearly making the leap from a big company to joining smaller companies and founder relationship is very big. Can you share more about the harder transitions? You did mention earlier, now you're doing everything, not just one thing, but what was some of the hardest things that you had to do, and how did you train yourself or get the support you needed to tackle them?
Yeah, I mean, I just briefly touched on this, um, like the free food at Meta. That's a that's a big thing to kind of comfort yourself out of, right? Um, but yeah, I think there are a lot of like comfort creatures like that in your in places like Google and Meta. Um, like I spoke about the perks, the benefits. I needed to readjust to life with all of this, right? I didn't realize how accustomed I had become to these things until they were gone, right? Um, I really needed to unlearn a lot of these things. Um, in what I have figured out is that for myself, I could get by knowing just enough and being at surface level on various topics at work that I knew others would kind of step in when I needed additional detailing, right? I realized that I could just um, learn things at a superficial level. Now, like this doesn't really fly, right? Um, it was one of the hardest thing that I had to unlearn for myself. I needed to um, like get really dirty with my hands. I needed to um, learn at a much deeper level to find that clarity in the conversations that I was going to have, right? And to build something from the scratch, from the ground up, that depth really matters today. Um, and I can't just delegate the hard parts away, which again were some of the comforts that I had in a large organization that you could rely on institutional knowledge and all of that, right? Today, the shift away from the breadth of things that I need to do, along with the depth, has been incredibly challenging, but also like superbly rewarding as well, because you see something grow from a seed into a sapling. Yeah, that's very, very powerful.
What a growth story, and what amazing what you've been able to do since Meta. Let's go back to the time at Meta and where you knew you'd be impacted. You had mentioned. How did you get through that transition, and how would you recommend other folks who may be still at Meta or other big tech companies prepare themselves, whether they're still at those companies and they transition out? What suggestions or help or advice would you give to them?
Yeah, I think I would recommend people to like find a way to quieten the noise around them. I relied a lot on people, plain and simple. People around me, people who would um, guide me. Like I said, a lot of trusted mentors, friends, and family. They really helped me kind of uh, guide this transition from a um, noisy environment into a place where I could um, find what I needed to do to quieten things around me, right? So, for people who are kind of in these spaces today, anticipating further backlash, I would say go find your ground truth. Go figure out what that really means to you, right? How would you want to live your life, irrespective of your job, the current place that you're in, and that kind of becomes like your place of um, safety and reflection, not your jobs or the positions that you're in, and so on, right? um, I think continuing to think about yourself at this time, and how you can find that resilience is going to be like super critical. There's so many factors that I haven't even touched on. Like there's finance, there's your family situation, there's so many other things, and only you would know what that all of that in summation means to you, and how you are able to kind of ride the wave in a way, right? And so for each person it'll be different, but you will need to find that single wave that you can ride, that you will continue to ride for a long time to come, and that becomes the path that you want to break.
Can you expand on that note? And how does someone find themselves, and what tools or frameworks would you recommend they go through to really understand who they are and what they really should be working on, or what they should be focused on?
Yeah, I'd kind of go back to what I'd shared with Vincent. Like before you make any big decisions, like find a way to clear your head, ground yourself, create space and meaning for the reflections that you're having. Um, like I said, I did a lot of this through um, team sports where I felt that camaraderie around people and so on. Um, as you probably tell, there's a lot of the conversation centered around people in a way. That's for me, that works for me. The next one would be to really look at like what are your strengths, what are your interests, what energizes like you, when do I lose track of time? Right? These are all important markers for me to kind of look at um, when I'm thinking about like, hey, how do I ground myself in my strengths, right? And finally, like as you kind of go through this, the framework is to assess and test yourself in different directions. Take these different directions, run them by your advisors or people who are able to give you honest feedback, and look for evidences or challenges that kind of come your way, right? Of course, there's an element of having a gut check as well, that you would know really if that is going to work for you. But yeah, this is not a complicated framework or anything like that. I don't even know if it's a framework, but this has been my anchor through my uncertainty, and yeah, like it has kind of helped certain people and guide their thought processes as well.
And did you go through a coach? Did you have friends? Did you have your spouse to walk you through these type of discussions? Or how did you actually reflect on all these things?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of a coach and friends and family. I would say like my biggest support system has been my wife, right? Without her kind of taking care of the daily threads in our lives, I wouldn't have been able to do half the things, right? Um, but yeah, there are instances where we've had to kind of rely on other people, rest our shoulder, rest our heads on others' shoulders, and so um, it has been that balancing act of finding and enriching ourselves with the right set of people around me, around ourselves. And I think through the coach, I get to speak my mind out in different forms. With my spouse, I get to like tackle things that are right in front of us. And with my friends, I tackle like um, things that are more in the horizon so that I can keep track of what's coming my way, right? And so with the combination of these three things, I found what really worked for me and what doesn't.
That's great. Thank you, Ron. Can you share more about the post big company life? You share about your startup. Sometimes it's not for people, and also sometimes big companies continue to become not for people. Do you recommend folks test things out in a fractional way, in a consulting way? Should they take big long holidays and breaks? What do you recommend immediately after to really find yourself, right? Because I think there's different ways to find yourself. You can dive straight into a job, fractional work, consulting work, a startup, and I don't think there's one size fits all, right? How should someone think about time frames? Because some folks who've told me now they were laid off from Google 2 years ago, and now they're ready to look for a job, and clearly it's a very tough job market. How should someone think about those consequences and what they need versus what the market requires of them to do?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think you have some of the answer in your question itself. It would depend on people's situations and circumstances, right? And that's where I always recommend people to think about things as milestones rather than timelines, where you give yourself a milestone to achieve. Like, oh, I need a break away from work. What are you breaking away from? Um, uh, how are you able to think of yourself to kind of come back into this journey, right? If you give yourself a timeline for that, which is with a strict time period, you often see yourself fail than succeed. Uh, to some people, it might work, but not for everyone. And so you want to give yourself like, what is that break going to mean to you? And let's say you're kind of coming back. What are you looking for right now? Um, um, are you looking to kind of feed your family? Are you looking to enrich your knowledge? These are questions that you would want to answer to then determine like what's the path going down for you, right? You've taken a break, you're fully recharged, you want to set the path ablaze, then maybe going down the founder role could really bring value to you. For somebody else, like going back into a new challenging job could really support you, right? Or hey, you've got kids and toddlers to take care of, but you still want to kind of contribute to your family's income, then maybe a part-time job or a fractional role could see you benefit from it, right? So it's clearly dependent on people, and the way that I would kind of encourage people to figure this out, again, going back to my framework, like ground yourself, understand your strengths, and then test and retest your assumptions and your findings to figure out what is that path that you want to take today. And this is what's I believe this has worked for me, and like going through this process could also help you get through that ambiguity of what you really want to do in a few months' time.
Thank you. So this is more of a fun question, Anand.
Yeah.
If we were to do this fireside chat in 5 years' time, where would your company be? Where will you be? Help me predict the future, or where are your aspirations?
You always want to think about the positives when you think about the 5-year timeline, don't you? So I'm going to continue to do that. In about 5 years' time, I think when we do this again, um, I would see myself in a place where I'm actually not chasing any KPIs at work, but chasing experiences and outcomes for myself. That's where I want to be ideally. Um, and this would basically mean that the time or I mean, this is a question that I ask myself: when was the last time you did something for the first time, right? I want that the response to that to be in months rather than in years. And so now and that's the kind of place that I want to get to for myself, right? If and this has been something that's kind of proportionate for me. If my life is in a positive direction, I typically feel like my relationship with my work or with people around me is also positive, and that's how I want that to be as well 5 years from now.
Fantastic. We're running out of time for this fireside chat. Anand, did we not cover any specific things you want to share with folks regarding transitions and looking for the next role and opportunities?
Yeah, I think the one thing that I wanted to share was um, there was something through all of these hardships and career ups and downs. One thing that I've found about myself has been like how I kind of show up with a positive intent, even when things aren't going really well. I think that's been my um, withering, unshakable kind of truth, right? Through every transition, through every setback, I've discovered that for myself, um, um, like in enduring this hardship, I still want to maintain that perspective of, hey, there's going to be something that's positive out there for me. It might take more time. It might consume me a lot more than I would have liked, but I've learned that I could face those challenges without it eating me alive. So that's something that I found very meaningful. It's a skill that I think I have developed over years. And I've come to realize that any of the skills that I have today aren't tied to a particular role, a particular company, or anything like that. It's me, it's my thought process. It's something that is actually a part of who I am, right? And so I would like kind of encourage people to understand like what it would um, take for them to get to a space where they truly understand what their uh, like base set of skills are, so that they realize that in any kind of transition, those skills will kind of stay with them and it's not tied to anything else. So yeah, that's one thing that I wanted to share with folks.
Fantastic. Well, on that note, Anand, thank you for spending the time with us about transitions and how to thrive after working in amazing companies like Google and Meta. I know a lot of people out there really appreciate the advice you can share and are going through a lot of transition moments. But Anand's just one of many stories that all of you should really hear, and how you can really thrive. Clearly, we all work very hard to work at a Google or Meta and everywhere else, but end of the day, the company is not who you are. And I think you have a lot more to give back to the world. And for me, I felt the same, that Google was my identity. And in some ways, it's continued on running the ex-Google community and through that key. But I never left Google to run the Google alumni community. Has grown so much to now over 33,000 people. And everyone has more to give beyond looking at these big companies. So go try to find what you're looking for or you should fall into. And it sounds like Anand fell into this startup opportunity. I fell into this startup opportunity, and we hope everyone can actually find where the true north is, and reach out to us anytime on LinkedIn. I'm sure both of us will respond. And thank you for watching this.